Today's lesson for Chapter 5 is going to be about creating and modifying schedules. Schedules, if you are unfamiliar, are similar to spreadsheets, which you are likely more familiar, where you are mostly entering in data that is going to refer to other objects that are going to appear in your project. This can make it easier for people that are doing estimating or purchasing on your project to be able to see a full comprehensive list of everything that's going to be going into your project. We're also going to be creating a couple types of unique schedule types where we get to sort schedules and then separate them by department and create custom parameters. We'll start with the file that we ended on Chapter 4, and we'll start by making a schedule. I'm on page 5-17 of the book. We're going to go to the View tab, and then we're going to come over here where it says Schedules. This button may be larger for you based on the resolution on your computer, but it should show a little spreadsheet on the left side of it, and we're just going to be creating a standard schedule quantity. Because we're going to be making a schedule that's going to list out the rooms in our project, we're going to come down to the category of Rooms. We're going to name it Space Program. We're going to tell it to schedule building components, so that's actually checking actual room elements in the project, not items that we're going to schedule in keys. And then the phase will be for all of our new construction rooms. When you click OK, that will bring you to the schedule properties, which is going to ask you what fields you want. Again, if you're familiar with spreadsheets, these are essentially going to be your headers at the top of your columns where all of your items are going to be listed. For our space program, we're going to want to add in area, comments, and level. We do this by selecting those items one at a time and then clicking the Add Parameters button in the center. So I will add area, comments, and level. And that's all we need to do for now. Click OK, and it will open into our schedule. You're not going to see any rooms in our list because we have not added any rooms in the project. Now there is a fourth field that we're actually going to need to add in that was not in that list. So we're going to go back into our properties, go back into that fields area that we were just at, and we're going to need to create a new parameter that is not in our available fields. When we click this button, you're going to enter in the information as you see it on page 5-20 of your book at the top. So we'll keep this a project parameter. The name of the parameter that we need to add, that will be a custom one, is going to be called program area. It will be a common discipline, but it will be focusing on area for its data, hence its name. And it will get that by checking out dimensions. Now we are going to add another parameter, but this one is going to be a calculated parameter. This means it's going to look at information in the project and it is going to do some math for us to try and figure out if we are actually making rooms the recommended size that we are putting in the program area. This tool will help us be able to place our rooms, propose the size of the rooms, and then see whether or not the rooms that we end up placing end up meeting those sizes. You may be familiar with when you're doing bubble diagrams and blocking diagrams, you'll propose out that certain rooms should be certain sizes, and this will give you a visual aid to let you know if you're actually reaching those sizes that you want. So we're going to create a calculated parameter. Its name will be area difference, and it will be conducting a formula, and that formula is going to be to take the area divided by the program area and then subtract 1. You could type those out as long as you are very confident that you're going to type it out exactly the way that it wants, or we could come over here and we can tell it to add these elements, or you can just do the formula items like the parentheses, come over here and pick parameters that are fields that are available. Either way will work. But if you type it out, just be very sure that you're typing it out with capitalization exactly the way that it is displayed in the book and the way that you would want it in your project. Now that is all the fields that we're going to need. We also need to add in the name of the rooms. So we're also going to add in name as a field to our list. And these will be all of the fields we will need. But we do need to reorganize them. The higher up in the scheduled fields list that they are, the further left on the schedule that they will be. As you go down, they will go to the right. So we're going to want to start with name. So I'm going to take name and move it up. And then we will want area, program area, area difference, comments, and then level. Now up at the top, you're going to see a bunch of different tabs for how we can further customize our schedule. So let's actually get into that before we get into just looking at our schedule and placing our rooms. Let's go over to the sorting and grouping. This is going to decide how the schedule is going to break up your parameters and fields into certain groups. In this case, we're going to want to sort it by its level. This will make it to where all of the level 1 elements are consolidated and all the level 2 elements are consolidated. In this case, the elements being our rooms. So we will tell it to sort by level, ascending, and we do want to put a header and footer on those. The footer is just going to be totals only, the totals being areas. And we also want to display a grand total so we can see what the total areas will be and ensure that it is itemizing each instance of room and not consolidating similar elements next to each other. We do not want restrooms to just add up and tell us how much of a restroom space we want. We want to see how much square foot is in each of the restrooms. Next, we'll go to formatting. This is where we're going to really make use of those formulaic fields that we added at the beginning. So let's go to the area field, and we're going to tell it that it is going to calculate our totals. Because area is not just something to display, it's something that needs to actually calculate based on the square footage that it is reading in the room element. This will make sure that it's actually doing that math for us. And then we'll go to program area, and we're also going to tell it to calculate our totals. This is pretty common for anything that is adding up area, perimeters, volumes, or anything like that. And then we're going to go to area difference, and we're going to tell the header to just say the word diff to make it stand out from the other elements, because this isn't necessarily a column that we're always needing to display. So we want it to be able to stand out as something that's just going to be doing our calculations for us. When it tells us the area difference, we're not wanting it to be super accurate down to the decimal points of its calculations that it's creating for us. So let's make it a little bit simpler by going into the field formatting for area difference, or diff, turning off the default settings, and then as you'll see on page 5-23, we're going to change it to a percentage with no decimal places, and the unit, since it will be in a percentage, we will want the unit to be a percentage. And then we'll click OK. One last thing in the area difference is we're going to make a conditional format. This is where we're going to get that actual visual aid that's going to tell us if the difference in the area that we're expecting from what we're going to put into our program area and the actual area populated is going to be as close to the number that we want. So if we want a 400 square foot conference room, and we build one that is 500 or 300, if it's outside of a 10% difference of what we're expecting the room to be, we're going to make it light up yellow for us. And that will let us know that that area needs to be tended to, or maybe we just need a larger area than we were expecting. So we will go into the conditional format. We're going to make sure that area difference is the field that we're updating. And then the way that we'll enact the test is by telling it if it is not between -10 and +10% of the value that we're actually getting when we place our rooms. So we'll tell the test to light up if it is not between -10 and +10. We don't have to put in percent because we already told the units that they are going to be in percentages. And then that color will be yellow. You should see this at the bottom. It is going to create the conditions to use based on the condition that you put on the top, and it should say -10 greater than area difference, or area difference greater than 10, and then click OK. Now we do want to have level be a field that we're going to be sorting and grouping our items by, but we don't actually want it to display on our view. We do not need to see what level each of those views are for this project, so we are going to tell it that it is a hidden field. This will make it still exist as a field parameter, but not actually display as a column. Name is good. For area, we're going to update that to be actual, because this is going to be the area's actual levels that are going to be displayed when we place our room elements. And then our program area, we could just shorten to be program. And then we can click OK to get out of the schedule properties. You will see that these are the 5 columns that should be displayed. and then level will be hidden because we don't need it to display in our schedule. Now the actual area and the program area are both areas, so we'll want to combine them under one subheader to make that clear that they are referring to the same elements of the project. So I'm going to drag my mouse from actual over to program, and I'm going to group those two together. You will see they will put them under a common subheader, and that subheader is going to be called area. Now we are ready to put in our rooms. Two different ways that you can schedule things in Revit are by going into the Revit project, placing elements that are going to refer to items in the schedule, and then change the elements in the schedule. The second way, which is the way that we're going to be doing it today, is going to create all of our rooms inside of the schedule, and then later on, when we place the rooms inside of our law firm, we'll be able to pick from the list of items that we're going to type into our schedule for easier space planning. I will demonstrate a few of those now. We're going to come up to Insert Data Row, and you'll see that it added a room here, as well as a few headers and footers and grand totals as we told it to do inside of our sorting and grouping options. I'm going to be referring to the figure on page 5-28. So for visual simplicity, to make things easier for us, I recommend that you just look on the schedule on page 5-28 in order to put in your rooms. You will enter in the names of all of these rooms, and you will enter in the program size. You will also notice that some of the rooms have comments, and you will need to enter those in as well. For this part of the practice, you do not need to put in actual areas because you cannot enter in data in the actual area as we have not actually placed those rooms. And you don't need to put anything in the diff area because that is once again going to be something that is going to be a conditional format that is going to update as we place the actual rooms and it refers against our program. So I will start with reception. I'm going to type in reception for the name, and we are guessing that our reception is going to be 300 square feet. Under the comments for the reception, it is listed that it is the front and that it is the first impression that serves as a multi-purpose space. Our name column does not need to be as wide, so we can actually go between the A and B column and reduce that a little bit. And our comments is for sure not wide enough, so we're going to go to the right side of column E and drag that out until we can see that entire comment that we typed out. I'll demonstrate that one more time with the first item on page 5-28, which is going to be one of the two assistant areas. I'm once again going to come up to Insert Data Row, type into that room, which is defaulted to name room, type in assistant, and we are guessing that the assistant space is going to be 64 square feet. Because there's two assistant areas, we will need to do an Insert Data Row and type that all in again. Because we have used assistant as a parameter for a room, we can actually look in the drop down on the right side of the cell and select that option, and then give it an estimated 64 square feet as well. Before we move on to page 5-29 and begin sorting by their departments, which is going to give us the visual that we see on page 5-27, it is recommended that you enter in all of the rooms. And here is the schedule with all of the data put in. Once you have reached this point, we can move on to page 5-29, where we're going to actually create another schedule. This schedule is just our simple space program. We're going to make another schedule, which is specifically breaking it up by department. So we're going to come to our project browser. We're going to come down to our schedules and quantities where it created that space program, and we're going to right click on it and duplicate it. Once it renames this space program copy 1, we will tell it that it is going to be space program by department. And then let's go make the updates for it to reflect that actual information. We're going to come up to properties and we're going to add in another field. We're going to focus more on the department of the rooms instead of the level of the rooms, so we're going to select department as an available field and add it in, and then we're going to select level and remove it from our scheduled fields. And then we're going to go to our sorting and grouping, and instead of sorting by level or name as it's now defaulted to because we removed level, we're going to tell it to sort by department. And then after sorting the rooms by their departments, we will still want them to be in order, alphabetical order of the names within that department. So then after department, we will also tell it to sort by name. Under department, we will want to display the headers and footers as we did with the levels, and tell it to count for totals only. Tell it to go by count and totals, so it'll count the department's rooms and total them up by area. And then the names will not need to have a header and footer as long as they are just in an ascending alphabetical order by the names after they have been sorted by department. And now we've created our space program by department properties. We'll click OK, and you'll see that it is going to break it up by the departments that they have been associated with. For departments will be accessory spaces, building support services spaces, conference center, the front entry, and office and workstation. Once you have finished entering in the department for each of the rooms and it breaks it up like this, we no longer need to see the department column. That was simply a tool to help us break it up into these sections. So we will select the department column and we will tell it to hide. Be sure not to delete it, otherwise it will remove that filtering. Once you have a space program that has listed all of your elements out like this, and we have created our space program by department, and it compartmentalizes it like this, you have finished Chapter 5.